can talk about defending freedom, but I've actually put everything on the line to resist these despots and these stuff.
So that is Trump at the Libertarian Convention giving a speech, and for most of his speech, the crowd was booing him, interrupting him, clearly not fans of Donald Trump. Now, people were wondering if this was a big moment for libertarians, having a mainstream candidate show up to their event and give a speech, and a lot of people were saying, yes, this is finally the libertarians becoming relevant and trying to expand, trying to become more mainstream. And that's what it looked like, but it seems that libertarians themselves, or at least those at the convention watching Donald Trump, had a different idea in mind. And so I want to talk a little bit about libertarianism. I, at one time, thought of myself as a libertarian, and in many ways, some of my beliefs, I certainly lean toward libertarianism. But as far as the party, I've drifted away. I started to notice that libertarians, just like anarchists, Marxists, seem to be more consumed with their own ideology and their own superiority and being right and being ideologically pure, and that they lacked any pragmatism. So they kind of remind me of being back in school. You have the kids who are playing on the field, involved in the game, and then you have a couple of kids in the bleachers, firing spitballs at the people playing, mocking them, saying, oh, they're idiots, we're the smart ones, we're going to be up here, judging them. We're not going to play, we're not going to participate, we're not going to do anything useful, but we can sit here and feel smug and feel superior. That's been the problem with some of these parties, and this includes the libertarians. They have that same sort of energy, that same sort of attitude, where they don't actually get things accomplished because they are unwilling to be pragmatic and find some sort of compromise. One person I like to bring up when I talk about this issue is Lenin. Obviously, Lenin was the head of the Soviet Union when it first started. Great thinker. Whatever you think of his actual effect on the world with his Marxism, I'm not a fan of what he did to the Soviet Union. I'm not a fan of Marxism, but I do like to study Lenin because Lenin was incredibly sharp. He was a brilliant strategist, and he understood how to actually get things done. And in the early 20th century, before the Russian Revolution, he would go back and forth with other Marxists where they would debate each other, attack each other, criticize each other on how they wanted to implement Marxism and actually get it across the finish line. And so obviously Lenin won out and we had the Russian Revolution, but he wrote a lot about his battles with some of these leftist elements that didn't know how to actually get power, and it frustrated him. And in one situation, we have the German lefts. They said emphatically that we are not going to compromise with anybody. It's our ideals, it's our beliefs, it's our way or the highway. And he wrote, Lenin, in his one of his pamphlets, Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. He wrote this. I find this a little bit interesting here. He wrote, one must emphatically reject all compromise with other parties. All policy of maneuvering and compromise, write the German lefts in the Frankfurt pamphlet. And in response, Lenin says this: it is a wonder that holding such views, these lefts do not emphatically condemn Bolshevism. For the German lefts must know that the whole history of Bolshevism, both before and after the October Revolution, is full of instances of maneuvering, temporizing, and compromising with other parties, bourgeois parties included. to carry on a war for the overthrow of the international bourgeois, a war which is 100 times more difficult, protracted, and complicated than the most stubborn of ordinary wars between states, and refuse beforehand to maneuver, to utilize the conflict of interest, even though temporary, among one's enemies, to refuse to temporize and compromise with possible, even though temporary, unstable, vacillating, and conditional allies, is not this ridiculous in the extreme? So he's saying to these guys, you're already saying before we even start that there's zero compromise. You can't work with anybody. And if you do that, you're not going to get anything done. And that's, again, what I see with the Libertarian Party. A refusal to compromise, to be tactical in trying to expand their reach, expand their access. And recently there was something of a civil war within the Libertarian Party, and you may be familiar with him, Dave Smith, comedian, a member of the Libertarian Party, sort of took it over. And one of the things he says was that he was trying to make the Libertarian Party more effective, to reach out to people, which is why he was happy that they reached out to Donald Trump and RFK, and glad that they got these candidates who were, going to be, actually contending to show up to the Libertarian Convention and give a speech. So he said, this is a great thing. We're getting bigger. We're getting more mature. We got Trump here. We have RFK here. And what does the crowd do? They just boo Trump. And so if the goal was to bring the Libertarian Party into relevance, well, they just bit the hand of Donald Trump. And if Trump becomes president, it would have been great for the Libertarians to have had an ally in Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump a libertarian as he claims he is? Not really. Is he going to be perfect? Absolutely not. That's the reality. We're not going to change everything overnight, and Donald Trump is going to be far from perfect. But if you have a friend, you can sort of use that friend in power to pull yourself up. And it seems that these people in the crowd didn't want to do that. So now Trump, if he's in power, is he going to look back at the Libertarians and say, you know what, let me get some Libertarians in my administration because I went to their convention and they treated me so well? He's not going to do that. He was pretty, say, flustered on stage being booed. So he's going to remember that, because we know Trump is a little vindictive. And when you push him away, he does remember that. And one last thing about Lenin, because I find him so fascinating, is there was the anarchist Peter Kropotkin, right? And Lenin kind of, he found him fascinating, this anarchist, because he was just like the Libertarians today. He was pure. He had zero room for compromise. And when Lenin was in power in the nascent Soviet Union, he actually had a meeting with this anarchist, and he was just kind of looking at him like, wow, you're really committed to what you're doing, but you've done nothing as far as getting power. And here I am, the leader of this new country, this new Marxist paradise. And he thought it was just, again, interesting that this difference between somebody who had a belief system and somebody who had a belief system but was willing to be tactical. And Lenin was tactical, and Peter Kropotkin was a purist. And he died alone somewhere, I forget where he was at, but he never actually was able to get his ideas to become worldwide or have a huge impact as compared to Lenin, who obviously started, this century-long battle between communism and capitalism, and that had a huge impact on our world. So, Libertarians, if you want your ideas to proliferate, you're going to have to be more tactical. You're going to have to compromise and work with people who share a common enemy with you. Trump is, again, far from perfect. 100%. I recognize that. But Like Obama said in an interview years ago, you're not going to change everything overnight. All you can do is push the needle just a little bit in the direction that you want. And with Trump, that's all we're going to do. We're just going to push the needle. So get rid of the idea of this revolutionary change. It's not going to happen. All we can do is work in that direction very slowly. And hopefully, if we continue that effort over decades, hopefully shorter than that, but hopefully we can get to a better place. But again, that revolutionary change is not happening overnight. You can't be completely lacking of flexibility. You have to work with people who can help you achieve your goals. The left is really good at that, and the right, we're not so good at that. And this is another example. So libertarians, try to be a little more reasonable. I'm not saying abandon your principles, but understand in order to gain power and to get your ideas out there, you're going to have a little more tact. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. I am Dave Brown. This is The New Populist, and I will see you next time.